Hello and welcome to Wineskins, a program that features the lives of the saints and reflections on the Sunday readings, along with information on a variety of topics and issues from a Catholic perspective. I'm Father Jim Korda. Our program is brought to you through the annual Diocesan Appeal, the Catholic Communication Campaign, and St. Paul's Catholic Books and Gifts, a division of the Society of St. Paul. Our interview segment today will feature Matthew Schmalz. We will also get a glimpse into the life and times of St. Maximilian Kolbe, along with the reflections on the readings for this 19th Sunday in Ordinary Time. That and more on Wineskins. In our current issue segment, we will hear about vocations from Deacon Arthur Bodenschatz. With me again is Deacon Arthur Bodenschatz. Welcome back to our show.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
We'd like to spend some time with you as a deacon to talk about vocations. That is one area in not only here in the Church of Youngstown, but throughout the world that we need to continue to pray for good and happy and holy priests. What are some of the things that we as clergy can do to promote priesthood?
I think first of all, it's modeling a happy and healthy vocation. I think the church has a lot to offer this world, especially this culture that is at this point countercultural.
Sure.
A life of prayer, a life of presence, one that prioritizes face-to-face relationship, one that prioritizes true love and mercy. So I think when priests really model that for someone and really offer an encounter of Christ, that's a huge vocational catalyst for sure. But I also think just talking about it and like we're doing now and just having that conversation, identifying the need of vocations, but identifying just the beautiful life that it is to follow God's call wherever you go, those things make a huge difference.
Sure. I remember once many years ago in a retreat experience, we were talking about priesthood, and one of the images that came to mind was our hands are blessed with chrism, with oil at our priesthood ordination. And over the years, that oil sometimes tends to dry up and fade away. So metaphorically, what can we do to keep that oil fresh on our hands? What are some of the things that cause us to dry that up?
Yeah, I think one thing that's really helpful in keeping that oil fresh is just being aware of what are the ministries that give you the most life?
Sure.
What are your gifts? Because sometimes whatever assignment you might have, it might be a little bit more difficult to do the things that you just like more.
Sure.
But taking those opportunities to do the things that give you life are really helpful. And I think a lot of times what really dries out the oil is just working too hard.
Right.
You know, it's remembering that really the first job is to pray. First job is to know that we're at the service of the Lord, and the Lord is the one who's doing the work. And the more we get the mindset that we have to do things, the less we remember what the Lord is doing. It's that reminder that, don't let the oil dry out by working too hard, but just focus on the things that really bring you life, because God places those desires on your heart, and He wants to fulfill those.
Right. And I think there's that sense that we have to be honest and good with ourselves, first of all. Once that happens, then we can best serve other people. If we're not taking care of ourselves, it's hard to take care of somebody else.
Exactly.
In this church of Youngstown, but also in the larger church, we do know that there are fewer priests. I prefer to call it fewer priests instead of shortage of priests, because we're still doing the work of the church, but we're doing it with fewer of us. Does that bother your spirit sometimes, or is that something that is just part of the church that we live in?
Yeah, it's something I've really had to contend with in my years of discernment in the seminary, of realizing, it's a lot of work when you're doing God's work with fewer priests, and you have to learn how to take care of yourself with even greater intentionality. However, the beautiful thing with that is if you really can do that, what a great gift. You've created a virtue that's even stronger of knowing that I know how to take on quite a lot and yet not let that become too much. That presupposes a very strong relationship with the Lord, presupposes a lot of ability to delegate and to trust other people and to empower other people to fulfill God's calling in their lives. Obviously, it's not going to be easy, but it's something that provides a great opportunity.
Right. And I think that there's certain hobbies and likes that we have that are not as ministerial that we should also enjoy doing. What are some of the things that you like to do?
Yeah, it's a great point with hobbies. hobbies. I grew up playing soccer, and I love going back home and playing like indoor soccer leagues with some friends, and I try to treat that as an opportunity for evangelization because they know I'm a seminarian, they know I'm becoming a priest, but I still play soccer with them.
Sure.
I love music, so I play a lot of guitar, I do a lot of singing, and getting together with friends and just making music. I love playing worship music, so just going to different youth groups or different scenarios where I get to lead worship is always a huge blessing, and it helps me tap into some of the things that helped me fall in love with my faith in the first place.
And what can the folks that are listening do to help us in our priesthood and ministry to continue doing the work of the Lord?
I think for me, just having that personal relationship with people, having a feeling of family is one of the things that makes me feel most fulfilled in ministry, and I think it's the same for a lot of priests. So sure. I think just being open to those personal encounters and making your lives and hearts open to just priests who want to love you, and just being supportive in that way, it makes a big difference.
Deacon Arthur Bodenschatz, thank you so much for spending some time with us and talking mainly about vocations, but also sharing your ministry with us. May the Lord continue to accompany you as you accompany those.
Thank you so much. God bless.
For Wineskins, I'm Father Jim Korda. St. Maximilian Kolbe was a martyr. To tell us more is Ron Puhalla. He is from St. Mary Magdalene Parish in Youngstown.
Greater love has no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Today we explore the life of St. Maximilian Kolbe, a Polish Franciscan friar whose radical self-sacrifice earned him the title Martyr of Charity. Born Raymond Kolbe in 1894, his entire life was a preparation for one final heroic act of love. When he was 12 years old, Kolbe experienced a vision of the Virgin Mary. She offered him 2 crowns, white for purity and red for martyrdom. He famously accepted both, setting the course for a life of intense devotion and eventual sacrifice. This devotion led him to join the Franciscans and later found the Militia Immaculata, a global movement dedicated to the spiritual conversion through Mary. Kolbe was a pioneer in using modern technology for faith. He established a massive friary and publishing center in Poland and even expanded his mission work to Japan, where he built a monastery near Nagasaki. He was an intellectual as well, holding doctorates in philosophy and theology. During World War II, Kolbe was arrested by the Gestapo and sent to Auschwitz as a prisoner. In July 1941, after a prisoner escaped, the camp commandant selected 10 men to be starved to death as punishment. When one of the men cried out for his wife and children, Kolbe stepped forward and offered to take his place. For 2 weeks in a starvation bunker, he led his fellow prisoners in hymns and prayer until he was the last survivor. He died on August 14th. He was canonized by Pope John Paul II in 1982. Kolbe is the patron saint of prisoners and political prisoners, drug addicts, and those struggling with addiction, journalists, and families. The feast of St. Maximilian Kolbe is celebrated every year on August 14th, the day of his martyrdom. For Wineskins, I am Ron Puhalla.
Joining me again is Dr. Matthew Schmalz, who is Professor of Religious Studies at College of Holy Cross. Welcome to our show again.
Thank you.
Last week we spent some time talking about global Catholicism, and the other part, basically the whole part of your First Friday presentation, was global Catholicism and the Pope. I'd like to focus on the Pope now. Let's not talk necessarily about this Pope. We'll spend some time talking about Pope Leo, but let's talk about the papacy. I had mentioned it last week. What other figure, whether it's political, state, religious, would draw such attention than a Catholic Pope? I think of Pope John Paul II's visits, other popes' visits to the United States or around the world, the crowds that are drawn. What's the appeal? What's that all about?
Well, I think the appeal is a deeply spiritual one in a lot of senses. Clearly the Pope is a geopolitical actor,
right,
but he's also really the conscience of the world. And I think there is a real hunger among people for that kind of ethical perspective that one finds with the Pope as opposed to an ordinary national leader.
You know, you mentioned that word, the conscience. I think that kind of helps us focus on what we should do for ourselves. First of all, to have a good, properly formed conscience, but also to have that motivated, to have that blessed, to have that sanctioned by someone who is our spiritual leader. And in this world that we live in, which I believe is complex and complexing, what does the Pope do for us as everyday Catholics?
I think he gives us first a sense of the real unity of the Church through tradition and throughout different cultures. But I think he's also able to extend this rich Catholic tradition of thought and ethical reflection and apply it to particular new challenges that we all face. And so in that sense, he's able to articulate various spiritual and ethical perspectives that we can really benefit from in an age that's all too complicated, as you mentioned.
You know, historically, each of the popes has had to deal with certain issues on the world scene. Now, Pope Leo is dealing with much the same thing. What are some of those issues that we should be supportive of in him?
Well, first and foremost, I think in some ways this is because circumstances have developed in the way in which they have. He's really become the Pope of Peace, and he's been very outspoken about the need for dialogue, the need for consensus, and the need to resolve international disagreements in other ways than force. And so I think in some ways that's a role circumstances have forced upon him, but it also relates to his overall emphasis on human dignity as, fundamental to understanding the challenges facing humanity at this point in history.
What does that do? And I don't want to get into the area of politics at all, but what does that do for someone who is a Catholic who respects the Pope but may not agree with the direction that he's leading us? That's just not Pope Leo, but it's other popes. But why is it important for us to have this connection, this relationship with the Holy Father, and also to understand his role in our own lives?
I think that's a really important issue to consider. I mean, for me, I see the Pope as a teacher, as a guide. And as a teacher, he points out particular issues of concern and ways to approach problems that I think are worthy of our reflection. And certainly as Catholics, I don't know any Catholic, including myself, who has agreed with the Pope about everything. But taking the Pope seriously as a teacher, as someone with intellectual and spiritual depth, I think is a starting point for all of us Catholics, regardless of how we understand the particular implications of Catholic doctrine for individual issues.
And let's talk about Pope Leo. We are blessed to have him, first of all. Second of all, he's American. And what does that say for us in the American Catholic Church?
Well, I think one of the interesting things about Pope Leo is that, of course, he's an American, he's a White Sox fan, and so on. So, he does have a sense of the challenges and also opportunities that American Catholicism presents. But he also has a Peruvian background, which is equally important. So I see him as a bridge between North and South, between the global North and the global South, in a way that reflects changing realities and demographics in the Catholic Church as a whole.
And what about having two popes back to back from South America? What does that say about the Holy Spirit?
Well, it says the Holy Spirit is definitely moving, and I think both Pope Francis and Pope Leo were inspired choices. But it also says that the gravity of the Catholic Church is shifting to the global South, really definable way that will shape Catholicism for generations to come.
Of course, now we know that the Hispanic community is very vibrant in the Church, and yet we know that there's been a movement more recently in different parts of Latin America and South America to move towards Protestantism. Is there some shift in all of that? And what does that say for us with global Catholicism?
Well, I think it speaks to the importance of community. Many people I know who have been drawn to evangelical Protestant or Pentecostal communities are looking for that close, intimate sense of community. And I think in some ways, in certain parts of the Catholic world, we've lost touch with the kind of intimacy of community that parish can represent. And so I think all of this is a call for us to think about ourselves as Catholics and how we relate in community to others, because that's so important. And I think what you see within global Catholicism is the success in many circumstances of Catholic understandings of community, but in other contexts where they're challenged by groups who are much more aggressive about promoting their own faith communities than maybe the Catholic Church has been.
Dr. Matthew Schmalz, Professor of Religious Studies at the College of Holy Cross in Worcester, Mass. Thank you for spending some time with us. We look forward to your presence again on our show, but thank you for enlightening us, but also for reminding us to have that relational reality that is so important in the life of the Catholic Church.
Well, thank you so much. I'm grateful to be here.
For Wineskins, I'm Father Jim Korda. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
If you have a story idea for the Catholic Echo magazine, podcast, or website, send an email to catholicecho@youngstowndiocese.org. We'd love to hear your ideas.
Our song today is from the CD entitled There Can Be Miracles. It is by the Daughters of St. Paul. Our scripture reflection for this 19th Sunday in Ordinary Time will be done by Sister Regina Rogers.
Today's Gospel reading is a continuation of last Sunday's story of the feeding of the 5,000. The day was finally concluded. The sick were healed, the people were fed, and were now heading home. Jesus could finally be by himself to rest and pray. The disciples were in a boat when a bad storm came up. Jesus is not present in the boat, but the disciples see what they think is a ghost walking on the water. Then Jesus identifies himself, and Peter, always the impetuous one, says to Jesus, "If it is really you, command me to come to you on the water." Jesus says, "Come." Peter jumps out of the boat and starts walking toward Jesus. Then he becomes afraid and begins to sink. Jesus stretches out his hand and saves Peter. What can this story teach us about ourselves and about our choice to be his disciples? Peter asks to walk on the water to get to Jesus. This shows remarkable faith and a desire to be close to Jesus. Peter believes that he can walk on the water because he believes in Jesus. In other words, he is walking by faith. Peter understands that he needs to go to Jesus, which is a critical truth about having faith. The easy thing to do would be to stay in the comfort of the boat. The other disciples probably thought Peter was crazy, that he would drown. In the midst of the storm, they were going to play it safe and row to shore. But Peter is not thinking about the storm or the danger. Peter is thinking about his need to be close to Jesus. Too often, we want Jesus to come to us and settle down the storms in our own lives so that we can stay in the comfort of our boats. We are afraid to take those steps that might mean lack of control. We are afraid to walk by our faith. But the faith that walks to Jesus does not care about needing to do what seems impossible. How easy it would have been for Peter to look at the situation and think, he can't walk on water like Jesus. Jesus is standing in the sea. But Peter truly thought that he could do all things with the help of Jesus. Peter did not stay in the place of comfort. If it meant doing the hard thing, like coming out of the boat and walking to Jesus, that was what Peter was going to do. Notice, though, Peter does not presume that he could do this by his own power. Listen to what Peter says. "Command me to come to you on the water." Peter is not going to tell the Lord what he wants to do. Peter will follow Jesus wherever Jesus goes. Each of us, like Peter, is called to leave the comfortable things behind to go to Jesus, even in the midst of life's storms. When Peter shifts his focus from Jesus to the winds and waves, fear sets in and he begins to sink. Looking at worldly problems or difficulties instead of trusting in God leads to defeat. Peter knew that if Jesus commanded him to walk on water, then it would happen. The impossible would become possible. But things suddenly changed. It would be nice if the story stopped with Peter getting out of the boat and walking toward Jesus. But Peter feared the wind and the waves. He saw what could go wrong and was afraid of the consequences of his choice. And then Peter started to sink. In the next verse, Jesus comments on Peter's lack of faith. "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" We know this experience. We start in faith. We start walking toward Jesus. Then we doubt. Then our faith weakens and the problems, the winds and the waves grow stronger. Like Peter, we have to have faith that carries us ever forward, drawing us closer to Jesus, even when it feels like it's too hard or too much of a personal investment. We need to ask ourselves a really important question. What are we looking at beside Jesus? What do we have our eyes fixed on that is eroding our trust in Jesus? But there is good news here. When Peter is sinking, he cries out, "Lord, save me." Notice that Jesus does not say no, does not hesitate to help. Immediately, Jesus reaches out and takes hold of Peter's hand, and they both get into the boat. Peter has the awareness to realize that he is sinking and the wisdom to cry out to the Lord for help. When Peter stumbles, Jesus does not abandon him, but is quick to offer salvation. Lastly, when Jesus and Peter get into the boat, the winds die down. Jesus' very presence controls the storm. I believe that we live this story in our daily lives because there is always a storm brewing around us. Each day we are called by Jesus to step out into the water. And when life gets to be too much and we feel like we are sinking, Jesus reaches out his hand to catch us in the love of family and friends, in the people we work with, in moments of prayer and in moments of unexplainable peace in the midst of struggle and failure. What matters is that we are walking toward Jesus, remembering that Jesus did not let Peter flail about in the water or rebuke him for his lack of faith. Instantly, Jesus came to his rescue. What a great comfort this is to us. No one of us has perfect faith, but no matter how strong or weak our faith may be, we have our Lord. When we, like Peter, are sinking in our own doubts and fears, there is the hand of Jesus reaching out to save us. We need to remember the words, "Focus on me, not the storm." For Wineskins, this is Sister Regina Rogers.
This is what we love about St. Peter. He has faith. He tries. He inspires us. But he also sinks sometimes. He fails. In doing so, he helps us find our own name, our own place in the Bible. If Jesus has room in the disciples' band for a man who has both faith and doubt, who tries and sometimes fails, then Jesus might have room for you and me. Wineskins is made possible by the annual Diocesan Appeal, the Catholic Communication Campaign, and St. Paul's Catholic Books and Gifts. Wineskins is produced by the Roman Catholic Diocese of Youngstown. I'm Father Jim Korda, thanking you for being with us. Have a blessed Sunday, and may God be with you.
What have you done for your marriage today?
I gave my wife a hug this morning. I told her I love her.
I did her hair this morning. I think it looks pretty good.
I cooked my husband's favorite breakfast.
I bought her an orchid.
What have I done for my marriage today? I sent my husband a love email.
I read the newspaper to my wife, and it cracked her up. But she's still laughing.
What have you done for your marriage today? Make a change for the better. Need help? Go to foryourmarriage.org, a message from the Catholic Church.
They say America is the land of opportunity, but for some, life isn't so easy. Right now in America, 1 in 6 children lives below the poverty line. That's nearly 13 million children of all races, all across our country. Where do you draw the line and get involved? You can make a difference in more ways than you think. Go to povertyusa.org today, because 1 in 6 children in poverty is one too many. A message from the Catholic Campaign for Human Development.